Hey guys, welcome back to Coding with Josh. Last time we learned about JavaScript and how to set up variables. We talked a little bit about an overview for HTML, CSS, and then we dove into our JavaScript. I'm going to do the same thing today. We're going to cover loops and a little bit more about variables, just one thing that I left out that I feel is important today. But you'll notice it looks a little different, okay? Well, I had to hop over into a new thing because the last one wanted us to pay if we got, if we started writing more than 8 lines of code. So to me, that's way too little, but okay, we'll work with it. So this is that old one we were in. I'm actually going to copy everything over because I really like how, you'll notice this is all blank. So I'm going to just copy everything over. The link will be in the description of where, each site you can go to, but go ahead and go there, start copying over all of this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, okay? Just into their respective folders here. And we can see if I run it, so yours will probably still have a white background here of just blank page. This one you have to actually hit run, and then bam, we can see our message up on the screen. And I actually like having it not be an auto run thing and per edit. That was kind of messing with me last time, so I like that we have a run button, okay? So once you're here, maybe pause the video, get here, and I'm going to go into this right now. So with our variables, last time I talked about things being text. Well, I want to explain why it needs to be in quotes or some kind of, like you'll see this one's actually in apostrophes. Either one work, and they're interchangeable. But if you're going to use one, you have to use it consistently in the same string. So I can't go change this to be quotes, right? See how it's like, I've got all these errors coming up on the side here. It's telling me things are wrong. I need to stay consistent, at least in the same, in the same string that I'm doing. I could come down here and say, hello world in quotes now, and it's not going to have a problem if I put it in a variable. Variable world equals, hello world, whatever. Okay, I can do that. I can change it up, doesn't matter. I can change it up in the same string. I can say plus Josh in these ones, and it doesn't matter because it knows that it is an entire string. This is a string, this is a string, this is a string, but I can't come in and say, hey, quote ended by apostrophe. Now we got all these errors. So now why is that? I can't just go type hello, my name is Josh without having some kind of problem there because JavaScript is looking for JavaScript wording. They're looking for their specific, already pre-made functions that we get to grab onto, and those are the things we type without quotes. Anytime we need to say, hey, this is custom to what I want it to say, I need to tell it that it's reading text. The thing that it doesn't do that on is numbers. So if I say like var number, so I'm just going to say, hey, or I can call it number or my number. Variables are whatever I call it. You want to choose how you call a variable by something that would be meaningful and concise, right? I don't want to just call something number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, because I may not know what that was referring to when I try and go back and edit my code. But I guess do what works for you. But the best practice is to call something what you're giving it. I don't need text, or I don't need a string here because it's a number. So I can just type that out. JavaScript handles numbers. It doesn't handle text, but it will handle numbers like that. So I can say 1.5, I can say 10, I can say 100, I can say 100 million, however many zeros that would be. But if I'm going to do text, I need to put it in quotes. So I do want to keep my number, and I want to say 2. We're just going to call that 2. And then we're going to say, I'm going to actually get rid of this for 1 second here. And I do want to have some consoling going out, but maybe not just yet. By the way, if you're curious, your console's right here. So see this console hello world for me when I press play. I can clear my console, but I can't really resize my console too well without like resizing. You might be able to like mess with this in the settings and get it to pop out, but for now I'll just keep it because I can't really resize it. Okay, let's get into loops. Now we're going to talk about loops. So if we do for, set it up with parentheses just like that, and then brackets just like that. So that's pretty much when I refer to a for loop, it's going to look something like this. Okay, I'm going to usually you're gonna like leave some space in between because this is where your code goes to like do something. See how this like you have up here, try edit me, and then do something is kind of grayed out in the background. These are just notes. So when I'm running my code, it's not even gonna run line 6, right? Because these 2 slashes in front make it a note. The minute I take one away, it thinks it's code again, so I'm gonna put the 2 slashes, and that tells it, hey, this person's leaving a comment or a note. Okay, in the parentheses, I need to do something. I need to say let. So we're gonna set up a variable, let I equal 0, semicolon. So that's kind of like its own line. So we're saying, okay, in this line, we're setting up a variable called 0 or I, and we're making it 0. And then in the next thing, the next little part, we're gonna say less than 10. So while I is less than 10, I want to say I plus plus. Okay. So when I do that, what this is saying is, okay, let I equal 0. So at the very beginning, I is 0. And as we go through, I want to get all the way up to 9, and then I'm done because that's less than 10. So I can't actually ever reach 10. It knows to break out right before it gets to 10, and that would be 9. But it does run 10 times. Okay. And then I'm going to say I plus plus. What does that mean? That's just very, like, it's a shorthand, quick way of writing I, add 1 to yourself every single time. Okay, so when we go through our loop, it's gonna come through, it's gonna do something, it's gonna do line 6 and 7, and then it's gonna loop back on itself until it reaches 9, until I equals 9. So let's just console I for a second so you can see what's happening. Console.log I. Again, it's gonna run the loop, it's gonna console this, and then it's gonna go back, it's gonna add 1 to I, and it's gonna console what I now is. So if we hit run, we can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right, and there's our loop, and it ended. It didn't console anything further, and it went all the way up to 9. If I really want to console 10, maybe I want to see the number 10. You can do less than or equal 10, or you can do equals 11 or less than 11. Right, same thing. So now we can see it went all the way to 10. Okay, but I want to run it 10 times. I don't care that it ends at 9. That's fine with me. So. Okay, what can we do with this though? Well, there's multiple things you can do in the loop, and it really is just for these repetitive tasks that we're doing over and over. Let's make this simple. So if I say my number equals, I want to actually add to itself. So my number currently equals 2. Well, if I say my number equals I, well then it's just going to equal, we're going to overwrite 2, and we're going to say it's 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. But I actually want to say no. I want to add to myself, so my number plus I. And you can do this in coding. You can say, hey, whatever I had before, I want to add, whatever I equals, I want to add on to myself. So the first time it goes through, I is 0, and my number is 2. So you're actually going to see 2 plus 0 the first time. And then the second time, we're going to have 2 plus 1. And then 3 plus 2. It starts to get hard when you're thinking about like this is also increasing while this increases. So I'm just going to do the first 3. This first one's going to be 2, this one's going to be 3, and this one's going to be 5. And we'll see as it gets going down, like it increases over and over and over. And I don't actually have to do the math. I just have to clear it, and I have to press it. Oh, we need to console it. Console.log my number. And you can see the first 3, so 2, 3, 5, and then it kept going after that until it reached 10 times, and my number got turned into 47. So you're seeing now how loops can change the meaning of our variables. And we actually use variables all the time in loops because it makes our program dynamic. So we can actually change things based on what iteration we're on. Okay, but we don't have to do math. In fact, I could do more mathematic things. I can just add number to it and can clear this and run it. Ooh, did it not like it? Oh, it's called my number. That's right. So clear console. Right, I can add my number to it, and it's basically like it's squaring it every time, and it's increasing it and turning it into its square, so it exponentially gets bigger. So my number plus Well, maybe we just want a plus 1. Maybe we don't care what I is. Maybe we just want a plus 1. Okay. Maybe we want to times by 2. Because if we times by 1, that's not very fun. That'll always be 2. But if we times it by 2, you can see we had the same effect of my number times my number. Okay, or plus my number. So timesing it by 2 is the same thing as adding itself, right? Okay, that is how you do, a bunch of mathematical things. And there's all sorts of reasons. I know math doesn't sound fun, and you feel like, oh man, now I have to go back to learning about math again to do computers. And really, it's just adding, subtracting, and timesing is the majority of beginning out in computers. It's really simple math that you should have learned in elementary, right? So okay, let's go to the next thing. We can actually do this with strings now. So I'm going to say, let's set up another one called var customer. I'm going to say customer colon space. Okay, so I want to actually console out what customer we're on. So we're going to say let new message equal message plus customer plus I. And if you can kind of imagine in your head what's going to happen already, you can see how these things are going to be combined. But let's go ahead and console it so we can see what it does. New message. Remember to do the new one you set up and not the old one, because that would just tell you hello world 10 times. Clear the console. Why is that blue? I don't know. Okay, there we go. Boom. Looks like we need a space here. Okay, there we go. So, and it ended at 9, right? So it told us what customer it was, and I mean, that might not be fun to, as a business, it might not be good to probably say, hey, customer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, unless you're serving food. But there's a way to actually do that better, and I want to hit that in the next lesson. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about arrays and how we can use an array in JavaScript and be a little bit more dynamic, but have more than just numbers, right? So I think that's going to stop our conversation about loops for today. This, by the way, this is not the only loop you can do. There are other types of loops, but I want to cover this one because this is the most basic and probably one of the most used loops. We probably will do another type of for loop in the next video called a for of or a for each loop. But okay, let's stop there. We'll come back and we'll talk about arrays. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.